Okay, so there's this dude named Brother from Another Brick that made a video called Lego Do Not Bring Bionicle Back, and I wanted to reply to it. Granted, I mean, I feel like a lot of what I'm about to say here is going to be pretty obvious, especially from people who are appreciative of Bionicle, given the fact that this video got so many negative dislikes. Yeah, negative dislikes implying there's such thing as positive dislikes. But before we do that, I want to give a little bit of context to those who are outside the know. Lego, for their 90th anniversary, they held a poll on their Lego Ideas website, and out of these options, they could choose which line is going to get a new set for the 90th anniversary for the Lego company. On this list, Bionicle was one of the options, and an overwhelming amount of people voted in favor of Bionicle. At the current time I'm making this video, it still hasn't gotten to the point where Bionicle has actually won this whole entire thing, because two things. Number one, Lego needs to do some vote verification, and we don't quite know how that's going to be handled. And admittedly too, I don't know how many people were making dupe accounts for Bionicle. I want to believe that there is a 3,000 vote lead above Classic Space for this, but unfortunately, I can't say with full confidence that there weren't any dupe accounts made in favor for Bionicle. But I do believe that the overwhelming majority of people did vote for Bionicle, though, regardless of that. But on top of that, though, after the voter verification thing, if the votes are seen as valid and they go to the next round, then the top three are going to go at one another, which are Pirates, Classic Space, and Bionicle. And again, at this point of time making this video, I have no idea which one out of these three is going to be the winner. Obviously, I'm hoping for Bionicle. I'd really rather not Classic Space, because whenever Lego does anything anniversary related or throwback related, Classic Space tends to be the thing that they favor. It just feels overdone, really. On top of that too, Lego Movie 2's sets weren't that long ago, and we got a lot of Classic Space style builds for that. And even like Spaceman in new colors that we never had along with that. And then on top of that too, we had that book a little while back that introduced Orange Spaceman. All I'm saying is that Classic Space has gotten more share of its representation. Pirates, yeah, it could be better than it is though. But Bionicle, oh boy, Bionicle got no love in here. But apparently, according to Brother from Another Brick, Bionicle doesn't need any more love. So I'm going to be looking at his video. I'm going to be making my counter argument to his little piece. Just for full clarity, I'm going to be criticizing the arguments and the standpoint, but I don't take this as me being a jerk to the guy who made the video. The guy, for all I know, this guy could be either a real chill dude or he could be an absolute creature. One or the other, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I'm not going to act like I do, and thus I'm not going to be trying to make any ad hominems, okay? I'm going to be attacking the argument only here. So first he establishes that Bionicle was successful and helped out the Lego Corporation, but then at 2010, Hero Factory is what replaced Bionicle.
Hero Factory was not well received by the community, and Bionicle fans campaigned for the return of Bionicle.
But he didn't go into the reason why Bionicle fans preferred Bionicle over Hero Factory. The two primary reasons why you're going to find somebody who's interested in Bionicle, they fall into two camps. Number one are going to be lore people who enjoy getting into like the expansive universe and narrative for the reasons why people like getting into things like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. And for Hero Factory to be the direct replacement to Bionicle and lack that, with characters that are more flat two-dimensional and story arcs that are much more Saturday morning cartoon, it didn't really align with what they wanted out narrative-wise. Now, the second side, though, that I feel like is going to be more the majority of people are the people who enjoyed Bionicle for the sets, the actual plastic itself. And the way that Hero Factory was handling things, wasn't what people wanted. The reason why Bionicle ended and Hero Factory began was that sales were declining for Bionicle, but the reason why sales declined for Bionicle were a culmination of three primary factors. So number one is the fact that for the latter half of Bionicle's life cycle, the builds were getting really repetitive. People liked how Bionicle, each new set you got, each brand new Toa wave, villain wave, whatever, it came with a lot of new elements and remixed elements. Most of them were different building experiences, but even when the building experiences were kind of similar to like one wave and another, at least visually, they were very distinct from one another, and they stood out amongst the crowd. You're not going to mistake the Toa Mata with the Toa Nuva. The only wave I'm not going to defend is the Bionicle, which was a misstep, and LEGO realized and course corrected quickly after that. But around 2007, Bionicle released barely any new elements and did a rehash of the previous year. And this became the case for the very end of the Bionicle's run, which completely kills incentive for buying the sets. If you're somebody who likes building with pieces, these pieces aren't different enough. I can build almost the same thing with the stuff I already have. And then people who like building these things and putting them on their shelves, it looks like the same action figure. It's not distinguished enough. Why do I want 3 of the same looking things? I rather have 3 very different looking things on the shelf. Reason 2 that happened was that they changed in 2008, and then this carried on through the last of the series. They changed the socket connection joints to a different style that was prone to breaking. And I don't know why LEGO did this. I'm going to assume that they were trying to keep friction longer on these pieces, but ultimately the Bionicle pieces were breaking, and they weren't things that could last basically generations. So that took a big strike on the line, because breaking plastic is very antithetical to what LEGO is, and people don't want to be rebuying the same figure over and over and over again. Especially when reason 3, 2008, the market crash happened. TLDR, parts were breaking, people didn't have as much money, and the things were starting to look too samey. Okay, so going to 2010, Hero Factory comes on the scene. So with their 2.0 wave, they decided that they're going to distinguish themselves from being Bionicle type builds and break out the loop of samey set design that Bionicle was stuck in. Now, the problem with that though is that the solution that they ultimately came to was the Ccbs building system. And the Ccbs building system, in like a couple years, basically took the problem that Bionicle fell itself in and amplified it even more. Most Ccbs sets look the same, and they're made out of many of the same parts that came out when they initially came onto the scene. And the Ccbs lifecycle lasted much longer, even extending through Bionicle's lifecycle than going even into LEGO Star Wars action figures. All these sets were way too much of the same thing. These shell pieces and these bone pieces. They weren't really distinct elements from one another that individualize each set's release. So after you get like 5 Ccbs sets, you don't really need too many other ones, because I'm like, you can build almost everything you could imagine out of these 5. Number 2 is also the Ccbs building system isn't really exactly from an aesthetic to a build complexity level, aligning with why people liked Bionicle. People like Bionicle because it was just Technic, but you can make action figures now. That's pretty cool. But Ccbs, it simplified everything to just be the same type of connection piece, and while really useful when mixed in with like some system and some Technic, Ccbs by itself is kind of boring to build with. So the sets that Hero Factory was pumping out near the end of its life cycle were nowhere near as exciting as the sets that Bionicle were pumping out near the end of its life cycle. And Bionicle still had the breaking socket problem. Yet the sets were still more interesting, so yeah. On one hand, it's good that this guy was condensing and making a quick 2-minute video, but his oversimplification of the Bionicle point of the argument definitely leads to a lot of less understanding of where he's going with this. Maybe if he verbalized himself more and elaborated, maybe I can see the reason why he comes to the conclusion that he comes to of ultimately don't bring back Bionicle. But that thesis isn't very well communicated through how like overly simplified basically his opposition is. And we'll get to that in this next part.
In 2015, LEGO granted the fans their wish and rebooted Bionicle. Bionicle fans rejoiced. LEGO had listened to their pleas, but the sets did not sell well whatsoever and were clearanced in no time.
So there's another noticeable question that is missing in that entire section. Why? Why did these sets not sell so well? Well, simply put, while they were Bionicle in name, they were still exactly what fans didn't want from Hero Factory. In fact, these Bionicle sets, when they first initially launched, they did pretty darn well when they released with just the original line of Toa characters, even with the heavy criticism of a lot of the designs and the undeniable clunky augmentations. They tried to make the Ccbs build more like Bionicle, but rather than just bringing back old Bionicle elements, they tried to modify it, and like a best example being the weird gear backpack that we got with year 1. Ugh, disgusting. Outside of the Toa characters, there weren't really any interesting new characters that were added to Bionicle. We got skeletons, and like almost every single like Lego genre you can think of at one point or another, for some reason uses skeletons. Skeletons are like the most generic Lego enemy to have. So to have like one of the most unique individualized franchise to have like the most simplistic, dumbed down antagonists, the most generic enemies, that's pretty darn disappointing when you're stacking it up against the Balrog or the Rakshi or the Paraka. Iconic elements to old fans and interesting and could be enticing to new fans if presented correctly. But as what they did was just another skeleton. Not too interesting. And year 2, while they were trying to course correct a little bit, they didn't do enough, and unfortunately the damage that year 1 caused killed interest in year 2. Fans want Bionicle back, but what Lego gave us wasn't exactly how we wanted it.
LEGO recently announced to celebrate their 90th year anniversary in 2022, a classic theme had the ability to be brought back as an 18+ set. They gave us 30 different options. We're not going to cover those options because that's not the point of the video. But the top 3 at the moment are Bionicle, Classic Space, and Pirates. Well, LEGO, do not make Bionicle. As much as I'm not a Classic Space fan or a Pirates fan, it's better than Bionicle. You guys gave Bionicle fans the chance to bring back Bionicle in 2015, and well, they didn't buy the product. So what makes you think they're going to buy it now?
You gave Bionicle fans the chance to bring back Bionicle. Simply put, first off, Bionicle fans aren't the ones bringing back Bionicle, it's Lego that brings back Bionicle. What Bionicle fans are doing is basically we're showing that there's a demand for Bionicle. The reason why, though, Bionicle fans didn't buy the product is the fact that, simply put, it didn't meet the standards of what the fans wanted out of it. Bionicle fans would be more than happy to build and buy and play with, even in their 30s, Technic-style action figures, and we'll put tons of money into it. But we want to spend our money on something that's well-designed, a well-built product. We're just not going to be spending money at every poop stock we see that with the word Bionicle on it. And even though, like, I think to people who are non-Bionicle fans, it's sometimes hard for them to tell the difference between, oh, why is, this Bionicle G2 so different than G1? It looks like the same thing to me. If you actually mess around with this stuff, you quickly realize there's a big difference between how a Toa NECA is designed and a Master of Fire is designed.
I think there's a huge enough audience to actually go and buy the sets. Well, I feel like Bionicle fans now, they say they're going to buy something, and they don't actually buy it, which is kind of the dilemma. Is this going to be another failing set? I truly believe if you bring back Bionicle as an 18+ set in 2022, it will not sell well. Do you really want Bionicle representing your company for its 90th year? Especially after it failed in 2015? Well, I don't know. I personally don't want it to be made, but I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below.
What I don't like about the ending of this video is a common rhetoric that I hear from a lot of Bionicle detractors about Generation 2. And simply put, they're putting the blame on the fans for the failing of a product and not the corporation that made the product. And that is very confusing to me because it feels like, oh, just consume mindlessly. Don't actually care if what's there is any good, just buy it up. Don't care if the food is bad for you, just eat that crap and get fat. Why? No, it's like, I want my hamburger, but I want the hamburger to be the best hamburger out there, okay? I'm gonna have standards about it. This argument is kind of like, say, Spider-Man. A lot of people really like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, but imagine Spider-Man 3 and then like the Andrew Garfield movie, the second one. Both of those films weren't good and disappointed a lot of people. Now, if Marvel just said, oh, no more Spider-Man, oh, well, it's your guys' fault for not liking our bad movies. I guess people don't like Spider-Man then. No, we like Spider-Man. You just made a bad Spider-Man thing. We like Bionicle. You made a bad Bionicle thing. Make a good Bionicle thing, we will buy it. And if it's your 90th anniversary set, well, it's gonna have to be good, because that's gonna be a little embarrassing regardless what the what the subject matter is. If it's your prestige 90th anniversary set, it's gonna have to be a perfect specimen. Anyway, so I'm signing off, and if anybody says like, oh, this video a little too mean, this video a little unprovoked, just putting out there, the guy at the very end of the video asks for comments and thoughts. I'm assuming that by leaving comments below, he's I take that as, you know, it's supposed to be a text message, but a video link, I think that constitutes as a comment. I'm commenting on it in this video. Yeah, it counts. It counts.
Lego, bring back Bionicle. You will not regret success.